Okay, I guess it's time to watch John Doyle's newest video. This one is, I know I have a command. I'm sorry. It's time to watch John Doyle's newest video, exposing the insane leftist hypocrisy. And John Doyle is wearing a pepperoni pizza tie, so if I was someone who was a conspiracy theorist, I'd probably have opinions on that. I'm not, though, so... It's not the porn one yet, no, unfortunately. So let's see what he has to say.
I'll tell you what, folks, I'm starting to realize something. And it might get me in trouble, but you know what? It's about time that somebody said this. Everyone wants to think about it, but I'll be the one to say it because I am so brave. And you think about it when you see the left calling Amy Coney Barrett a radical because she's a Catholic, but then seeing them praise Joe Biden for supposed...
I don't think it was just for being Catholic. I think it was because of the talk of her living in basically a commune where the women were called handmaidens and were forced to be subservient to men. I think that was more what people found her to be radical about. And also some of her, like, opinions on different things that she'd written in the past. It wasn't just because she's Catholic. For fuck's sake, Biden's Catholic.
You see it when...
Right? There's a difference between being Catholic, like Biden is, and deciding that your religion takes paramount, like, and deciding that your religion gets to dictate what other people do. That's the difference.
Every state in the country has billboards alongside the highways from the federal government asking for information about the people who occupied the Capitol, but nobody cared enough to even do remotely the same for the Antifa and Black Lives Matter terrorists. You see,
it's almost like, first of all, that Antifa isn't an organization at all, and second of all, that Black Lives Matter has never tried to overthrow the government and murder senators. Funny how that works.
When Dr. Fauci talks about the importance of wearing masks, but then he himself won't wear one off camera. Or when
he does wear them off camera. He's sitting next to people he lives with in that, like, section, or he's with people that he, like, is around often. Like, they came together, so it's fine as long as there aren't people directly around him. This is the one picture that they've been circulating, by the way, to try and shit on Fauci for the whole year. Not just this year, but I'm going back, like, 12 months, not just this number year of 2021, but in the past 12 months. This is the picture, because it's the one picture they have where his mask is down when he's talking to someone else who he's around all the time anyway, and also is wearing a mask. So, it's just...
when these politicians talk about the importance of social distancing and locking down, but then they themselves aren't following those protocols, and it's about time that someone...
I agree that that's messed up, and they shouldn't do that shit. That's been explained many times.
...says it. I don't even care if I get banned for saying it, because the left are a bunch of hypocrites.
Why would you get banned for that?
That was my impression of a mainstream conservative with an IQ of 104 making tens of thousands of dollars each month to describe to you people via his microphone all of the low-hanging fruit he's picked and placed into his basket of takes.
Gotcha. It's satire.
I will now revert back to myself, transition to greatness so that we can have a much-needed lesson in framing and rhetorical strategy for intelligent and patriotic conservatives who actually seek to conserve something, so do stay tuned. Fantastic.
There's nothing funny about the tool.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Heck Off Commie. What a fantastic discussion we have planned for today. Such powerful and important insight awaits us all. I'm excited, but first, I don't know if you've noticed, stop me if you've heard this one, but many state and local governments have used the virus to trample on the constitutional rights of millions while simultaneously defunding law enforcement while the mob and dangerous criminals roam free. When the government can't or won't ensure your safety, self-defense is your only option.
It's always good. Right-wingers, whenever they go to, like, oh, we gotta do a sponsorship, it's always led into with immediate, like, fear. It's not just, hey, you want to buy our holsters or our guns or whatever, because he often has sponsorships from companies that do guns or gun accessories or whatever. It's never just, hey, do you like recreational shooting? Buy our holster. They're wonderful holsters. It's always got to be like, the communist SJW BLM Antifa mob is gonna come and murder you and your family unless you buy this holster. Okay. Calm down.
That's why iTarget was invented, to give law-abiding citizens a cost-effective way to train in the safety and privacy of their own home. No more inconvenient trips to the range, no more expensive practice ammunition. Just download iTarget's proprietary app, load the laser bullet into your firearm, and start training. Just like so. Comes in all the major calibers, including .223 for your AR, so you can stay sharp with almost any firearm. And today you can save 10% plus get free shipping with the offer code Doyle at checkout when you go to itargetpro.com. This is the smartest way for you to practice, and it pays for itself within like a day. That's the letter I, targetpro.com, itargetpro.com, offer code Doyle. Very epic. We're going to talk about hypocrisy today, and I'm not going to claim that I've never called out hypocrisy before within a political context. Of course I have. We all have, and you have to do it from time to time to hold people accountable. Or in my case, you do it to cast the widest net, to appeal to the widest audience from time to time. But we need to address this fixation on hypocrisy that exists exclusively on the right. You don't see this on the left, and there's a reason for that. You know, will you see the occasional Occupy Democrats tier meme suddenly exposing conservative hypocrisy? Sure. Do people talk about it on social media? Sure. But I'm talking about the macro trends here, something that is much more prevalent within the right than the left in discussions, in media, and everything, is this fixation on hypocrisy. And not only is it counterproductive for us, it's actually entirely symptomatic of just how bad the position that we're in is in society, in your own country. And you might be thinking, well, you know, how are we supposed to hold people accountable without calling out hypocrisy? Where are your principles? Relax, I will explain. And if you're familiar with this channel at all, you know that one of the things that we like to do, we like to gatekeep. We do a little gatekeeping. It's called We Do a Little Gatekeeping. You might know that I've been described as the CEO of Gatekeeping Conservatism, which is something that I'm quite proud of. We have very good reasons for that. And a lot of people like to view politics as like a hobby or something. It's just something that they dabble in on the side. I'm not going to say that's a bad thing. That's probably a lot better for your mental health. But these types of people tend to dislike gatekeeping because they view it as akin to, you know, kids in the cafeteria being like, well, no, you can't sit with us. You can't join our club or whatever. I understand that. But it really does serve a purpose. And in case we need a reminder, I'll provide you a brief synopsis. In the last 60 years, conservatives have lost ground on virtually everything. We have lost so much that we're now literally on...
Yeah, that's literally the defining characteristic of conservatism, is you're trying to harken back to some period in the past, or you're trying to keep social norms the way they are, which is literally an impossible Sisyphean task. You cannot halt progress. It's just impossible. And no society in the history of the world has ever successfully done it. So you're gonna lose. You're literally saying, I'm part of the loser party. I'm gonna take a position that's inevitably going to collapse before my eyes within my lifetime. Hooray! It's stupid. It's a really stupid position to take, but you know. I've never accused John Doyle of being the smartest guy in the room, so whatever.
On the back foot in defense of there only being two genders. We're not winning. In the better part of the last century, the roulette wheel of conservative politics has had a house edge of 100%. Because of that, and that's not up for debate, by the way, that we're losing that badly, that's just a fact. But because of that, we don't have time for anything less than total focus and optimal strategy. We don't have time to keep experimenting with things that don't work. I don't care how fun they are. I don't care how virtuous it makes you feel. But what I do care about is winning. Like, I care about taking our country back because I'd actually like to raise a family here at some point, and given our fixation on the same family...
Oh no! John Doyle's poor hypothetical children. How much of a nightmare would it be to have John Doyle as your dad? Oh god.
Policies and tactics throughout the last several decades, I'd like us to just take a...
I'm really hoping that John Doyle's repugnant personality comes through in every interaction he has with women, but I'm sure there are plenty of trad wife conservatives who are looking for a fascist to settle down with and make little ones for the Fourth Reich or whatever. Unfortunately, I would imagine John Doyle will find someone to settle down with at some point, and it'll be very sad for everyone.
A break from pointing and laughing at the hypocrisy of the left to be collectively humbled by the knowledge that if we operate under the widely accepted definition of hypocrisy, which is saying one thing but doing the other, then conservatives are the biggest hypocrites in the history of the United States of America, because we say that we're conserving America, but we've actually conserved nothing. We have nothing to show for ourselves. We are the ultimate hypocrites.
Yeah, I agree.
It's an inconvenient truth, but it is nonetheless still truth. And the sooner we process this, the sooner we can begin to head in a positive direction. And one of the first steps to this is to break free from what's referred to as the Sir Galahad theory of politics. This idea that, well, I will win because my heart is pure. I will win because...
He always does this. Whenever he's talking about like conservatism and why he thinks conservatism has failed, it's he brings up this Sir Galahad theory of politics. Again, like he just said, the idea that if I behave virtuously and always do what I think the right thing is, then things will work out for me in the end. Basically, his proposition is that conservatives are behaving very fairly and morally and don't ever break any rules or become hypocrites and do one thing or say they're going to do one thing and then do another thing, have different sets of rules for themselves and for their opponents. And I don't know what universe John is living in, but no conservative in the United States in the last 50 years has been virtuous or has been too morally consistent to succeed. So this is just illusion.
Because I'm good and because I'm correct. It's just not true. It'd be nice if it were true, but it's not. It's not enough to be correct. It's not enough to be good people. You actually have to put forth effort.
You could try actually being good people first and try it out. That'd be good.
Because the reality is that victory in character does not translate into actualized victory, especially if they don't even value that character in the first place. The left doesn't believe in objective morality. They don't value that. It's all subjective to them.
Depends on what you mean. Do I think that it's a universal, like, agreement that murder and hurting others is wrong? Yes. Do I think that, like, it's okay to discriminate against LGBT people? No. You think your absolutist morality allows you to discriminate against people because you're getting it from a religious text, which isn't okay.
Which makes that strategy even more unlikely to succeed. The left believes in subjective morality. And when there is no right and wrong, because everything is subjective, virtue comes to be redefined as simply...
Subjectivity and morality doesn't mean there is no right and wrong. It means that our determinations... And again, this isn't prescriptive either. We're not saying, I have deemed that morality is subjective. It is the realization and the acceptance that our conceptions of morality are contextual and entirely based on our own beliefs and understandings of the people within the systems that we operate in. I'm not telling you, I deem that morality is subjective and therefore it is. I am saying, descriptively, morality as we understand it is and always has been subjective. Period. So, when you're making decisions about more morality or your ethics, you need to understand the context that you are making those decisions in so you can better understand both yourself and the decisions and consequences of the actions you're going to take due to those decisions. Like, that's reasonable. That's the adult thing to do. John's idea of morality is let me go to the really old book and decide what this really, really old book says I should do. Whereas someone on the left, not all people on the left, but someone like myself would say, okay, what's the situation? What's the best outcome for people in this situation? What do we do to help the most people? And that's not always as simple as that. I'm not saying be Spock and always say, you know, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few in every single situation, because no, sometimes the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many. It just depends on the situation. It's a mix of both consequentialism and deontology, right? You have to look at every situation and determine right and wrong based on it. And I'm not saying you don't have moral strictures that you hold to that you think are right or wrong. Like, I think that you shouldn't harm people whenever possible. That's a moral stricture I adhere to. I don't think you should discriminate against people. These are moral truisms that guide the way that I view moralistic situations and decision-making, and that's fine. But I also am an adult and recognize that my determinations aren't going to be everyone else's determinations. It's all subjective based on our own experiences. That's the reality of the situation, John.
Tolerance. That's it. How tolerant you are towards someone's subjective belief system. Tolerance is right, intolerance is wrong, and this is why it's a call out hypocrisy, which, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed this, but anywhere you look in the realm of conservative dialogue, that's all you see. Well, AOC said this, but did this. Nancy Pelosi said this, but did this. Oh, they want to ban your guns? Well, they've got armed security. It's all you see because it sells. It makes us feel like we're winning, but in reality what it does is expose the power structures that we're at the bottom of, and it showcases just how pathetic and lazy we are. It's the laziest flaw to call out, hypocrisy, because it doesn't require you to actually stand for something. It just requires that you're there to hold someone else to their subjectively defined standards. Doesn't matter. None of that matters. The left is bad because they want to kill babies. They want to take your guns away. Not my Beretta. We're going to have a problem. I didn't even plan that. I'm a genius. They want to destroy the history and heritage of our nation. That's why they're bad. Hypocrisy assumes that there's an agreed upon value framework of which they're in violation. What values would those be? On what values are we in alignment? Because it seems to me like conservatives volunteer themselves to these ideas of principles and assuming good faith in what is effectively a prisoner's dilemma. But the left doesn't want to participate in that with you. It's not even that they claim to and then, they just lie about it. No, they're like openly trying to crush you into the ground. And so if you refuse to respond to that out of some misguided sense of self-righteousness, worry not, because everyone knows that you're just rationalizing your cowardice to be a virtue. You're weak. You would literally be facing the wall in the MAGA hat, about to be shot in the back of a skull by Black Lives Matter and Antifa paramilitants wielding high points and AK-47s respectively. And
Wait a minute. Who tried to overthrow the government last month again? Was it Antifa and Black Lives Matter? Hold on, let me check. Let me see. Where's the Antifa flags? Okay. Hold on. Wait. No, it's okay. No, it appears that right-wing Trump supporters like John tried to overthrow the government and murder Congress people last month. So, funny how that worked, huh?
You make a comment to the guy next to you like, can you imagine what would happen if we did this to them? So much for the tolerant left. And then you go JFK mode. Let's talk about tolerance for a second. We touched on this recently, but it's important to reiterate that the left never actually cared about tolerance, ever.
Yeah, we do. Tolerance is something that's great. You're not always going to agree with people around you, but you should be able to tolerate them. And let me be clear, this is the important bit, as long as they're not hurting other people. The second that your behavior or belief system becomes destructive to other people, that's where the tolerance ends. Otherwise, you end up with the paradox of intolerance, or the paradox of tolerance. Paradox of tolerance. So the paradox of tolerance basically says, there's some good infographics about this we can take a look at. So the paradox of tolerance says, should a tolerant society tolerate intolerance? The neo-Nazi says, you want more tolerance? Respect my ideas. The answer is no. It's a paradox, but unlimited tolerance can lead to the extinction of tolerance. When we extend tolerance to those who are openly intolerant, for instance, people like Adolf Hitler, neo-Nazis, Mussolini, whoever, the tolerant ones end up being destroyed and tolerance with them. Any movement that preaches intolerance and persecution must be outside of the law. In this case, I would say it should more so be outside of the realm of social acceptability. As paradoxical as it may seem, defending tolerance requires to not tolerate intolerance. That's basic stuff. I think everyone understands that on some level. You cannot tolerate people who wish to destroy tolerance, because if that happens, then tolerance loses. The goal is to get maximal tolerance of people who are not harming other people.
But they didn't have any power in society, so 100 years ago, what did they do? They employed these ideas of tolerance and live and let live, man, as a rhetorical strategy to gain a seat at the table. And now
it's not just a rhetorical strategy, although it's part of a rhetorical strategy, as anything you talk about in politics is. But it's a moral stricture, at least for me. It's a way of organizing the way I want to live my life and the way I want to behave and how I structure my political views. Like, it's important. I'm not just doing it for reasons as a strategy. It's because I genuinely believe it.
They've taken over and you're like, well, I find it actually rather intolerant of you to not allow me to have my seat back. And that's the biggest thing to understand. Hypocrisy is the impotent cry of the powerless. To cry hypocrisy is to reinforce and display the power structures in this country and reveal just how impotent you actually are. You point out the hypocrisy and nothing happens. You don't have the power to hold them to their own standards, even if you disagree with the standards in the first place. Think about that. The left rarely uses hypocrisy because they don't need to.
I definitely see that sort of rhetoric on the left. I see people pointing out the hypocrisy of the right. It happens. Everyone, that's a strategy that, and again, I agree that there are certainly plenty of honest, true, things you could point to that are hypocritical with people on the right and sometimes people on the left as well. People tend to be hypocrites. welcome to humanity. It sucks. But often this hypocrisy comes from people viewing situations differently, and what one person considers to be hypocritical, other people wouldn't necessarily, because they're viewing the context of these situations or the individual elements in these situations so differently that they see the situations as different and not comparable like the person who calls hypocrisy might. It's a whole thing. Anyway, the point being, this is rhetoric that gets thrown around all the time in politics and in any sort of social situation where you're pitting people against each other. People will point out hypocrisy. That's common.
Usually they just mobilize their societal control to demonize people. That's a lot different. That is categorically and significantly different. The left sets the narrative as this person is evil, as arbitered by our misrepresentation. These ideas are evil as arbitered by our misrepresentation. React accordingly. And the right says this person didn't do what they said they were going to do. And then the country is like, shut up, you're evil. You see the problem? We don't set the narratives.
Maybe don't be evil then? If you're not evil, you're fine. But you're evil, so, you know. And let's be real. That's dramatic language, right? When I say evil, what does evil even mean? That's a whole other discussion. But, like, people who are fashy, they're as close to evil as evil gets, right? If there was a real Darth Vader, he's evil, right? And if you want to describe Darth Vader, he's a fascist. I'm just saying. And yes, it's funny that I'm doing the movie comparison, but seriously, as close to we have in our conception of, like, mythical, fictional ideas of what evil is, fascists are that. If you don't want to be called evil, don't be evil. Don't be a fascist, John.
We don't have the power. To cry hypocrisy implies that narratives are being set that you don't control because you are reacting to them, and conservatives don't set narratives or really do anything. We simply react. Well, can you believe this? Next thing you know, they're going to do this other crazy thing that I'm not going to do anything about. They get off on hypocrisy because they know that it makes you look weak. Every time you complain about...
I get off on many things. Hypocrisy is not one of them, John.
Leftist hypocrisy, the frequency that you emit, the data that you emit when transcribed into purely zeros and ones can just as easily be interpreted as, please have sex with my wife. And I can't stress enough how important it is for conservatives.
They're so obsessed with cuckolding. Why?
To realize this. The fact that the left did something despite saying something else can at least be respected in that they did something. Does this mean that we should lie or sacrifice integrity? Absolutely not. It simply means that we need to stop being cowards, basically. Like, what about this could possibly get worse for you? They're already censoring you. They censored your president, and they realize that as long as...
Wow. If only the president had a room in the White House that they could set up where you could go and he could talk to the press at any time of day or night. That would be so convenient. So he didn't have to rely on a private platform to allow him to shitpost at 3 a.m. Or if the ex-president even were given a huge amount of money from the government for travel expenses and for setting up their post-presidential stuff. Wouldn't that be nice? Oh wait, that already happens and Trump is rich and could, like, hold a press conference literally whenever he wants. It'd be embarrassing if John knew that.
As they do it through private companies instead of government, both of which operating within the same coalition that is fundamentally and wholly against you.
When's his anti-porn dissertation coming out? Right? That's what I'm wondering. I'm so excited for that video. It's going to be wonderful in the worst way.
Then it'll be fine because you'll be too entrenched in your think tank principles to do anything about it. I'll give you an example. Some people who self-identify as conservatives will say, well, you know, we shouldn't teach our kids to love America because that's indoctrination and that's what the left does. And it's like, buddy, do you not love America? Do you not acknowledge that American history is spectacular and worthy of appreciation? Well, of course I do. I just don't like the idea of being told what to think. And it's like, yeah, I get that, but they're
appreciating American history and suckling on the teat of the founding fathers are two different things. You can teach American history and appreciate American history as it actually exists without, like, veering into jingoistic propaganda. That's fine.
There comes a time when you really just have to abandon this whole question everything, I'm a free thinker, like that whole mentality, and just grow up. Americano for Joseph? What'd you really put in that cup? How do I know caffeine isn't just a placebo? What do you think it costs more to distribute? A drug that makes you energized, or propaganda commercials that show people energized after supposedly taking the drug? I'm a free thinker, because it's like, should you question everything? Yeah, but you reach a point where it's time to stop asking questions and just acknowledge reality. This is why conspiracy theories are so popular nowadays. People are supplementing for their lack of intelligence and personality by just deciding that which is most interesting to them must be the truest reflection of reality.
Oh my god, I actually agree with John Doyle. Oh no. You know what? John's take on conspiracy theories? Kinda on board. Although I do find it ironic that he says that in the same breath of making his whole identity about Trump and MAGA and fashy bullshit. But, you know, whatever. Broken clocks. You know how it works. We've seen Lord of Patriarchy.
And they're always the least interesting theories. And the worst part is that the conditioning is still there, invariably. And the whole question everything mentality is purely to supplement for the fact that they're just like not that interesting and they don't have agency. You'll get coffee with a girl and she'll be like, I think the moon landing was fake. And you'll be like, oh yeah, really? I have a flash drive in my backpack with files on it that can, well, I won't say that. I won't say that. But you know, you'll say something like, okay, yeah. Or what if every copy of Super Mario 64 was personalized? And they'll be like, no way, that's crazy. You're crazy. Or actually, no, perfect example. Go out.
What does he have a USB drive of in his backpack? Guys, what does he have a USB of in his backpack that he can't say on YouTube?
Ask the person you know who loves conspiracy theories. They just love them. Go ask them what they think about the lockdowns and COVID. Watch how quickly they go from, OMG, Epstein didn't kill himself, to what's wrong with you? The science is settled, experts, and they just melt down.
Oh, is John an anti-COVID person? Is he a COVID denier? That'd be hilarious.
Because these people just do whatever the narrative tells them. They're like the mom who's always trying to keep up with their kids and, you know, the trends, who always just trying to be cool, except what's cool to them is being a slave to the system. And the system allows for little things like, ooh, what if the government is talking to aliens? Ooh, what if the Illuminati is referenced on the $1 bill? Try going against the grain. See what happens to you. Try going against the social trends and against the narrative. Try asking your friend with the question everything sticker on their laptop if they question the media's reported cause of death for George Floyd. Got off track here. These are two separate types of people.
This is interesting too. I just watched I think it was, God, who was it? It was a toxicology person or something going over the toxicology report for George Floyd and being like, yeah, all these right-wingers who are saying it wasn't the cop are fucking idiots. That's fun.
What we're talking about here. Right now, we're talking about the average person who doesn't really have agency. They just respond to social trends and narratives, and who quite often uses this idea of question everything to cope for that fact, which is probably subconsciously realized, or at least to supplement for a lack of real personality or insight. But first, we were talking about the person who just doesn't like the idea of, say, teaching kids that they should love their country because, well, the left are the ones who indoctrinate. Here's the thing. First of all, if you don't push back against the indoctrination that they're already doing and will continue to do until you push back, your kids and grandkids won't even have a country to live in. That's number one. Number two is simply that if American history were just taught objectively, that would be sufficient. We're not talking about...
If American history is taught objectively, then it's not going to be rah, rah, love America, no matter what, kids. It's going to be, okay, here's some interesting battles, here's some interesting things that happened. Also, whoo boy, do we have a lot of slavery stuff to get through. Whoo boy, do we have a lot of genocide of natives to get through. Whoo boy, do we have, you know, that's not what you want, John. That's not what you want. What are you talking about?
About constructing these elaborate narratives like, oh, George Washington called an attack nuke to win the Revolutionary War, which is why we've cemented it as a staple of American culture. We're just acknowledging the fact that if American history were actually taught to our children, maybe they wouldn't love the country, but they certainly wouldn't hate it. And at the very least, they would respect it. Whereas now what happens...
I have no idea what he means in terms of attack nuke. I have no idea.
Happens is at the very least they take it for granted, and in most cases they hate it or think it.
There's no such thing as objective history. It's impossible. Yeah. You basically have to read primary sources and make determinations based on subjective viewpoints of said historical events. Like history isn't objective. History is experienced subjectively by those living through it, and all you can do is try and paint a picture of events based on the snippets you get from people who lived said events. It's tough. It's tough. Not to mention, historiography is a thing, which is an entire study of how different historical periods have taught and looked at historical events from their past at different parts. Like, the way we view the Civil War is different than someone in the 1950s would view the Civil War, and different than someone in the 1920s would view the Civil War, you know? Stuff like that.
It's evil, thus illustrates the power of narratives. And I know I've painted a relatively bleak picture, but there's actually 2 points of good news here. Firstly, that if we ever get to set the narratives, we won't even have to lie to do so. That's kind of cool. Secondly, and this one might sound weird, bear with me, a majority of the people who voted for Joe Biden would have voted for Trump if the right controlled the narratives. Seriously.
Oh, God. All we need to do is get control of all the... Jeez, John, do you see why people call you a fascist now? All we need to do is get control of all the media networks and all the sources of information and subvert it with our right-wing talking points, and all of a sudden, bing, bang, boom. Fascism successful.
Think about that. These are people who don't really think for themselves, who just kind of go with the flow, react to the trends in society so that they're perfectly aligned with them. And if the right were in charge of setting those trends, and if we did so more effectively, those types of people would come over to our side, guaranteed, because you can't expect everyone to do the levels of research that we do, to follow this closely as we do, and frankly to even care about this stuff as much as we do. And like, yeah, it's important, but honestly it's not the most pleasant lifestyle. And so people actually deserve even to live in a society that doesn't try to brainwash them into hating that society, but rather one that simply presents the information. Very basic stuff. America
Ah, yes, as we all know, right-wing media is known for being very objective and not at all propagandistic. Jesus Christ. Yeah, can you just start packing for Texas already? Get out of my state, John.
America's actually good. America should actually be put first. Families are good and should be aspired to. Vices are bad. Our culture is exceptional.
John, there's nothing wrong with family. Family can be a great thing, but you, like, have a very strict definition of what a family is, and that's a straight guy and a straight woman with 2.5 kids. Like, what? What are you talking about, John? Gay people exist. Trans people exist. You don't get to just erase us.
Our history is exceptional. Our benevolence is exceptional, etc. We're not talking about lying about the issues, lying about our rank in the world as it pertains to different metrics. No,
our benevolence is exceptional. Ooh, boy.
Just trying to stop the country from committing suicide by telling the truth. But we can't tell the truth if we don't have the power to do so. There's a reason why they don't want you to have that power, why they're shutting you down. They can't afford to give you back that seat at the table, because ultimately truth and good will win, but only if they are given the chance to do so. And so as long as we subscribe to this idea of, well, who gets to decide what's right and wrong? Who gets to decide what's true or not? We're going to lose forever. And honestly, to me, that sounds a lot less like a guy who's trying to get to the bottom of things and more like a guy who doesn't really believe in himself or anything at all, which I guess I can understand given the state of things, but we don't have time for that anymore. Figure it out. The Rock says, know your damn role. It's basically as simple as working to make yourself the best and most virtuous person that you can be, working your way up whichever ladder you prefer, and then waiting to use that power that you've obtained for good. And if you don't like that, just be honest with yourself at least, because it's probably not that you don't like the idea of figuring out what good is. It's probably because you just don't like the idea of climbing the ladder, because that actually requires work on your part, whereas noticing the difference between AOC's rhetoric and behavior and pointing a finger and laughing as though you've saved the West doesn't really require anything. Hey guys, if you like this video, leave it a thumbs up, leave it a comment, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and of course...
Again, the entire... Oh, look at how much is left. He's going to do a really long, cringy bit at the end of this, I guarantee it. It's going to be painful. The entire video falls apart because John's, like proposition that the right is inherently too moralistic falls flat on its face to anyone who pays any attention to politics. Like, at all. Terrible.
Share the video.
Where's the video on porn, John? You said it was coming.
With a friend. Pizza time mode yet again. Epic pin that someone sent me in the mail because I got kicked off Twitter for telling people to call their representatives.
You got banned for doxing people, John. You doxed at least 10 voters.
Very epic. We love it.
He's just such a liar. It's crazy.
And then, of course, the 92FS. Can I show?
There was a picture of a voter roll going around that John tweeted. And it had, like, people's phone numbers and addresses and stuff on it, and their full legal names.
This on YouTube? I can because it's for a sponsor. We love our sponsors. Imagine being a small business right now, going through all of that, and still willing to take the risk of sponsoring conservatives. We, like, literally, like... We love our sponsors for that reason in itself. And then also they make everything possible, just like you guys. Everyone makes everything possible. I make this like the least amount of possible. Like I do it, which is cool, but everyone else is like Atlas. Actually, no, that's pagan. I don't want to compare it to, I don't want to blaspheme. I'll just shut up. That's actually what I'll do. I'll just shut up.
Mentioning other, whatever.
But we love the 92FS.
John apparently can't watch the Disney movie Hercules without feeling sinful. Whatever.
And we love the laser bullet too. It's kind of epic. I don't know if I have batteries in it. Shut up, Bolshevik. Wait a minute. Why didn't that work? Oh, I'm stupid. Safety's on. Well, having the safety on isn't stupid. Safety is, of course, first, but, you know, it's obviously clear. Well, it's not clear because we got the laser bullet in it. Shut up, Bolshevik. Yeah. This is how we take back the culture. Few understand this. Thank you so much for watching. May God bless America.
John is the most draining person to watch because it's the worst mix of confidently incorrect, fascist, and Zoomer cringe. But whatever. It is what it is. That's John. Hopefully his video on adult videos will be out soon.